Admiral Jack Morrison stood motionless before the curved observation window of the ESS Hyperion, his weathered features reflected against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling storms. 20 years in the Navy hadn't prepared him for the weight of this moment. Below the window, illuminated by the gas giant's ambient glow, holographic displays tracked the positions of 37 ships, humanity's best-kept secret, and, quite possibly, their last hope. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice broke through his contemplation. "The Arxian delegation has entered the solar system. They're broadcasting their demands on all frequencies." Morrison didn't turn around. "Let them talk, Lieutenant. How are the gravity shield tests coming along?" "Engineering reports 97% efficiency. Dr. Watson says they can push it to 98, but it would strain the containment fields." "Tell them 97 is enough." Morrison finally turned, his steel-gray eyes scanning the bridge. Every station was manned by the best Earth had to offer. Soldiers, scientists, and pioneers who'd spent the last decade preparing for this moment. Status of the Jupiter Shadow Protocol. Commander Sarah Hayes, his XO, approached with a tablet displaying real-time data. "The gravitational masking field is holding steady. As far as their sensors are concerned, we're just another cluster of space rocks caught in Jupiter's orbit. Though I still think hiding an entire fleet here is a bit like playing peekaboo with a supernova." Morrison allowed himself a thin smile. Sometimes the best hiding spot is the most obvious one. The Arxians are so convinced of their superiority, they won't look twice at what they consider natural phenomena. The bridge speakers crackled to life with the translated voice of the Arxian ambassador. The alien's tone carried that particular blend of condescension and false benevolence that Morrison had come to expect from their kind. "People of Earth, the glorious Arxian Empire extends its hand in friendship. Submit to our guidance, and your species shall be elevated. Resist, and face the consequences that have befallen 1,000 worlds before you." Morrison watched his crew's reactions. Some clenched their jaws, others gripped their stations tighter, but all remained focused on their tasks. They trained for this, prepared for this moment since the first Arxian probe had been detected at the edge of their solar system. "Sir," Rodriguez called out again, "the Chinese Space Force is responding according to plan. They're playing their part perfectly, asking for time to consult, showing just the right amount of fear." "Good." Morrison moved to the central command station, bringing up a holographic display of the solar system. 8 Arxian warships had taken up position just beyond Mars' orbit, standard intimidation tactics. They had no idea that the supposedly primitive humans had been studying their every move, their every weakness for years. "Engineering to bridge." Dr. Watson's voice came through clear and strong. "The quantum particle accelerators are primed and synchronized across all ships. Gravity drives are running silent." Morrison nodded to himself. The gravity drives were humanity's trump card, technology that even the Arxians hadn't mastered. While they relied on brute force and conventional propulsion, Earth's scientists had learned to bend space itself. "All ships, maintain position," Morrison ordered. "Let them think they're facing a primitive species barely capable of reaching their own moon. Let them underestimate us. It's worked for every other empire that's tried to conquer humanity." Commander Hayes stepped closer, speaking softly. "The crew's ready, sir. They all know what's at stake." Morrison looked around the bridge one final time, taking in the quiet determination on every face. These were the best of humanity, not because they were fearless, but because they acted despite their fear. In the coming days, they would either secure humanity's place among the stars or join the long list of species that had fallen to the Empire. "Send word to all ships," he said finally. "Operation Eclipse is now active. May God have mercy on their souls, because we won't." Supreme Commander Zixtal watched Earth's pathetic conventional forces scramble with something approaching boredom. Their crude chemical rockets and hastily assembled defense platforms were exactly what intelligence had predicted. The desperate flailing of a species centuries behind Arxian technological supremacy. "My lord," his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Krell addressed him with appropriate deference. The humans are deploying their orbital defense grid. Their weapons are primitive. Of course they are. Zixtal's mandibles clicked in amusement. Proceed with standard subjugation protocol. Destroy their primary military installations. Let them witness true power. The massive Arxian dreadnought, Imperial, will move forward. Its energy weapons charging. Behind it, 3 support cruisers took up attack formation. Standard procedure for thousands of conquests. That's when everything went wrong. A solar flare erupted from seemingly nowhere, its intensity far beyond normal parameters. Krell's sensor station erupted in warnings. Impossible. Krell's crystalline eyes widened. The flare. It's artificial. Before Zixtal could respond, the ESS Hyperion emerged from the manufactured solar storm like a phantom. Its gravity drive bent light around its hull, creating a rippling effect that made it seem to phase in and out of reality. Unknown vessel detected. Multiple officers shouted at once. Energy signatures are. We can't get a lock. Zixtal rose from his command throne, all 4 arms gripping his station as he watched the impossible unfold. The human ship moved like nothing he'd seen in 3 centuries of warfare. It didn't so much fly as dance between his vessels, its gravity drive creating localized distortions that sent his carefully arranged formation into chaos. My lord, we've lost contact with the Vengeance and the Stellar Fist. Krell's voice cracked with panic. Some kind of gravitational weapon. It's crushing their hull plating. Return fire, Zixtal roared. All ships, eliminate that vessel. But targeting the Hyperion proved impossible. Every time their weapons locked on, the ship seemed to bend space around itself, their energy beams curving harmlessly into the void. Morrison had studied Arxian targeting systems for years. He knew exactly how to exploit their dependence on linear trajectories. Sir, a sensor operator called out. Multiple signatures emerging from Mars' orbit. They're using the planet's magnetic field too. By the Emperor's wings, there are dozens of them. Earth's Squadron revealed itself in full force. Ships appeared from behind Mars, from within its asteroid belt, from carefully constructed blind spots in the Arxian sensor network. Each vessel moved with the same impossible grace as the Hyperion, their gravity drives working in concert to create a battlefield that defied the laws of physics as the Arxians understood them. The righteous fury is gone, Krell reported, his professional demeanor cracking. Their weapons, they're not just bending gravity, they're weaponizing it. Zixtal watched in horror as one of his dreadnoughts imploded, crushed by a focused gravitational singularity. The humans hadn't just developed new technology, they transformed the fundamental forces of the universe into weapons. All ships, regroup, he ordered, but it was too late. The human vessels had divided his formation, isolating each Arxian ship. They moved with coordinated precision that spoke of years of preparation. The Imperial will shuddered as a gravitational wave washed over it. Warning klaxons blared throughout the ship as stress fractures appeared in its supposedly impenetrable hull. Sir, Krell's voice was barely a whisper. We're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Admiral Morrison's voice filled the Arxian bridge, translated perfectly into their language. This is your only warning. Leave our solar system, or we'll demonstrate what else humanity has been working on during our primitive phase. For the first time in his centuries-long career, Zixtal felt true fear. These weren't the actions of a primitive species awaiting enlightenment. This was the carefully orchestrated revelation of a power that had deliberately hidden its true capabilities, waiting for this exact moment. All ships, he commanded, his pride bitter ash in his mouth, initiate emergency temporal jump. Retreat to fallback position Alpha. As his fleet fled, Zixtal knew with crushing certainty that the Empire had made a terrible mistake. They hadn't found another primitive world to conquer. They had awakened a sleeping giant. They're returning, Commander Hayes announced, her eyes fixed on the long-range sensors. 17 capital ships, including 3 planet breakers. "They're not playing around this time, sir." Admiral Morrison studied the tactical display aboard the Hyperion, watching the massive Archean reinforcement fleet emerge from hyperspace. Their formation was different now, adapted but still rigid, still predictable. "Status of Operation Slingshot?" he asked, his voice steady despite the odds they faced. "All gravity anchors are in position around Jupiter's poles," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported. "Dr. Watson says the resonance field is stable. We can initiate the sequence on your command." Morrison allowed himself a grim smile. "Signal all ships. Execute Maneuver Delta 7. Let's show them what real space combat looks like." The Earth Squadron burst into action, their ships splitting into predetermined attack groups. The Hyperion led the charge, its gravity drive creating a wake of distorted space that the other ships surfed like cosmic waves. To the Archean's sensors, it must have looked like madness, smaller ships deliberately charging into the guns of vessels 10 times their size. "They're launching fighters," Hayes called out. "Thousands of them." "Perfect." Morrison tapped his command console. "Initiate gravity nets." The human ships suddenly scattered, each racing toward precisely calculated positions around Jupiter. As they moved, they activated specialized gravity projectors, creating a complex web of gravitational forces. The Archean fighters, designed for straight-line assault runs, found themselves caught in an ever-shifting maze of spatial distortions. "First wave of enemy fighters is down," Rodriguez reported with satisfaction. "Their pilots can't compensate for the gravitational fluctuations. Their own momentum is tearing them apart." But the Archeans were learning. Their capital ships held back, launching long-range energy weapons that could pierce through the gravity distortions. Several found their mark, human-shipped shields flaring bright against the darkness of space. "ESS Defiant reports shield damage," Hayes announced. "ESS Challenger's gravity drive is running hot." Morrison keyed his fleet-wide channel. "All ships, commence Operation Slingshot. Show them why we chose Jupiter as our battleground." The Earth Squadron moved as one, their gravity drives synchronizing with the anchors they'd hidden in Jupiter's poles. The gas giant's massive gravitational field began to pulse, transformed into a weapon by human ingenuity. Waves of gravitational force rolled out from the planet, each carefully calculated to miss Earth's ships while playing havoc with Archean targeting systems. "Enemy fleet is destabilizing," Rodriguez reported excitedly. "Their formation is breaking up." Morrison watched as the Archean ships struggled against forces they'd never conceived of facing. Jupiter itself seemed to reach out with invisible hands, its gravity enhanced and focused by human technology. 3 Archean cruisers collided, their shields overloading in spectacular explosions. "Hyperion, execute attack pattern Omega," Morrison commanded. "Let's show them the killing stroke." His flagship dove straight toward the largest enemy vessel, seemingly on a suicide run. The Archean ship's guns blazed, but the Hyperion phased through the barrage, its gravity drive bending both light and space around it. At the last possible moment, the Hyperion performed what should have been impossible. It quantum teleported through a gravitational singularity of its own creation. The human ship emerged behind the Archean vessel, inside its shields. Morrison had spent years studying Archean defense systems, learning their every weakness. Their shields were designed to stop external attacks, not threats that materialized in their midst. "Target their primary power core," Morrison ordered. "Fire gravity lance." The Hyperion's main weapon activated, focusing the combined gravitational forces of Jupiter and its own drive system into a single devastating beam. The Archean flagship's hull crumpled like paper, its mighty shields useless against an attack from within. "Sir," Hayes called out, "the remaining enemy ships are retreating. They're running." Morrison watched the Archean fleet flee, their once perfect formation now a chaotic rout. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of space warfare, turning the very fabric of spacetime into their playground. "Send word to Earth," he ordered quietly. "Tell them the giant has done more than wake up. we've evolved. Deep in the underbelly of New Singapore's bustling spaceport, Kexley hunched over her datapad, mandibles clicking with excitement. The Centaurian smuggler had paid dearly for this footage, but it was worth every credit. On her screen, grainy but clear enough, human warships danced through space like nothing she'd seen in her 2 centuries of life. "Play it again," growled Mactor, her Drachnid partner. His scales shifted colors with agitation as they watched the Arxian flagship implode under the Hyperion's gravity lance. "Impossible to fake," Kexley whispered, her compound eyes analyzing every detail. "Look at the gravitational distortions, the way they're using Jupiter's mass. This is real." A shadow fell across their table. Both aliens tensed until they recognized Sven, their human contact. The towering Nordic man slid into their booth, his cybernetic eye whirring as it scanned for eavesdroppers. "The Empire's trying to suppress the footage," he said quietly, sliding a quantum data crystal across the table. "But they're fighting a losing battle. Every merchant ship that jumps system carries copies. Even their own crews are sharing it in secret." On the screens above the bar, Imperial news networks showed sanitized reports of minor skirmishes in the Sol system. But in dark corners across 1,000 worlds, the truth was spreading like wildfire. "The betting pools are going crazy," Mactor rumbled. "Odds on Earth's survival just shifted from 10,000 to 1 to even money. Someone in the Imperial court is losing a fortune." Kexley's datapad chirped with an encrypted message. "The Resistance on Proxima II wants copies. They're offering premium rates." "It's not about the credits anymore," Sven said, his organic eye gleaming. "Every subjugated species needs to see this. Humanity didn't just bloody the Empire's nose. We showed it could be done." In the Imperial Palace on Arxia Prime, Supreme Overlord Kivex watched the same footage with mounting rage. His chief of intelligence cowered before him, all 4 arms trembling. "How many have seen this?" Kivex demanded. "My lord, we can't stop it. The humans engineered the data packets to replicate. Every time we destroy 1 copy, it spawns 2 more. They're calling it the Hyper Protocol." Kivex shattered his viewing screen. Even now, he could feel his empire of fear beginning to crack. In the outer colonies, there were reports of unrest. The Centaurians were asking uncomfortable questions. The Drachnid Assembly was calling for diplomatic solutions. Back in New Singapore, Sven shared humanity's next move. "Admiral Morrison authorized me to spread more than just footage. We're offering our gravity drive specs to any resistance group willing to fight." Kexley's mandibles dropped in shock. "You're giving away your advantage." "Why?" "Because humanity learned something long ago," Sven smiled. "True power isn't about hoarding knowledge. It's about sharing it. Every species has unique insights, different ways of thinking. Imagine what the Centaurian hive mind engineers could do with gravity drive technology, or the Drachnid quantum theorists." Mactor's scales shifted to deep blue, his species' color of revelation. "You're not just fighting the Empire. You're starting a technological revolution." "Exactly." Sven stood, leaving the data crystal on the table. "The Empire rose to power by keeping species isolated, afraid. We're going to win by bringing them together." As their human contact disappeared into the crowd, Kexley and Mactor shared a look. They'd smuggled many things in their careers: weapons, information, contraband. But this was different. This was hope. Across the galaxy, the footage kept spreading. In hidden labs, alien scientists pored over the gravity drive specifications, adding their own innovations. In secret meetings, resistance leaders watched humanity's victory again and again, learning, planning. The Empire had ruled through fear for a millennium, keeping their subjects divided and weak. But they'd never faced an enemy like humanity, a species willing to share its strength, to turn its victory into everyone's victory. The spark of defiance had become a flame, and no force in the galaxy could stop it now. Grand Admiral Krath watched his planet-killer fleet emerge from hyperspace, each massive vessel casting long shadows across Earth's solar system. The legendary commander touched the ritual scars on his face, marks earned from 1,000 victories. Never in his career had he failed to crush a rebellion. Earth would be no different. "Deploy the world render formations," he commanded. "Show these humans what true power looks like." Aboard the Hyperion, Admiral Morrison studied the tactical display with growing concern. The Empire had committed over 40 capital ships, including 5 planet killers, vessels capable of cracking a world's crust. "They're not here for subjugation anymore," Commander Hayes observed grimly. "This is extermination. Then let's give them something new to fear," Morrison replied. "Execute Operation Wolfpack. All ships break into assigned hunting groups." The Earth Squadron split apart, each vessel leading a swarm of AI-driven fighters. Humanity had learned early that they couldn't match the Empire's numbers, so they changed the rules of engagement entirely. Gravity corridors established. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, "Wolfpack Alpha, ready to hunt." The Hyperion's gravity drive hummed to life, but this time it wasn't just bending space around a single ship. Morrison had worked with Dr. Watson to develop something new, gravitational tunnels that could be used as rapid transit corridors for their smaller attack groups. Vikrath's first indication that something was wrong came when 3 of his screening vessels vanished simultaneously. The human ships had somehow created wormhole-like passages through space itself, striking from impossible angles and disappearing before his gunners could respond. "My lord," his sensor officer called out, "we're detecting quantum anomalies throughout the formation." "They're fighters. They're using our own ships as gravity anchors." Morrison allowed himself a tight smile as he watched the battle unfold. Each human capital ship acted as a pack leader, coordinating swarms of AI fighters that used the massive Arxian vessel's own gravitational fields against them. The bigger they were, the harder they fell. "Wolfpack Beta reports successful strike on their port flank," Hayes announced. 3 enemy cruisers disabled. Wolfpack Charlie is engaging their flagship. Vikrath snarled as his mighty fleet was picked apart by an enemy he could barely track. These weren't the tactics of a primitive species. This was the culmination of years of preparation, of studying every weakness in Imperial doctrine. "Launch the planet killers," he roared. "Target their lunar colonies first. Let them watch their people die." But Morrison had anticipated this too. As the planet killers moved into firing position, the scattered human vessels suddenly converged. Their gravity drives synchronized, creating a cascading series of spatial distortions that caught the massive weapons in a web of competing gravitational forces. "Initiate gravity lance barrage," Morrison ordered. "All ships fire as one." The combined power of Earth's gravity weapons struck the trapped planet killers. Space itself seemed to twist and tear as the massive vessels were crushed by forces they were never designed to resist. "This is impossible." Vikrath watched in horror as his supposedly invincible fleet was systematically dismantled. "No species has ever—" "Sir," his communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving reports of simultaneous attacks across Imperial space. The Centaurians, they're using human gravity drive technology. The Drachnids too. It's a coordinated uprising." Morrison's voice cut through their command channel. "You thought you were fighting one world, Admiral. But humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology. It was our willingness to share it." Vikrath, the unavoidable, faced with defeat for the first time, gave the order he'd sworn never to give. "All ships, emergency withdrawal. Fall back to." He never finished the command. The Hyperion appeared through a gravity corridor directly alongside his flagship, its weapons already firing. The Empire's greatest fleet commander watched his death approach and finally understood. Humanity hadn't just developed new weapons. They'd revolutionized the very nature of space warfare itself. And they taught everyone else how to do it too. In the crystalline command center of Centauri Prime, first speaker, Clara watched her engineers integrate human gravity drive technology with their own quantum tunneling systems. What had taken humanity a decade to develop, the Centaurian hive mind had refined in weeks. The Imperial shipyards are exactly where intelligence said they would be, her strategist, Tizen, reported. Their automated defenses are formidable, but they've never faced what we're about to unleash, Clara finished. Her compound eyes shifted, taking in the holographic display of their target. The Empire's primary shipyard at Nexus 7 had built their fleets for centuries. In hours, it would be dust. Aboard the Hyperion, Admiral Morrison received the encrypted transmission from their Centaurian allies. All ships, prepare for Operation Thunderstrike. Our friends are about to make some noise. Commander Hayes raised an eyebrow. The Empires pulled nearly everything to attack us. They never imagined their own subjects would dare to strike their core worlds. That's always been their weakness, Morrison replied. They think fear equals loyalty. The first indication that something was wrong at Nexus 7 came when their perimeter sensors detected anomalous quantum signatures. The Imperial defense grid activated, its automated systems preparing to repel any attack. But they were programmed to defend against conventional assaults. They weren't ready for what came next. The Centaurian attack fleet emerged from quantum tunnels enhanced by human gravity drive technology. Their ships, traditionally designed for hive mind coordinated strikes, now bent space itself to their will. Behind them came waves of Drachnid vessels, their crystalline hulls refracting gravity fields in ways even humanity hadn't conceived. By the Emperor's crown, the station commander breathed. Their ships, they're using combined technologies. The Centaurians had merged their quantum tunneling expertise with human gravity manipulation. The Drachnids had adapted their crystalline tech to amplify gravitational effects. What had started as humanity sharing their advances had evolved into something entirely new. Station defenses are targeting our fleet, Tizen reported. Clara clicked in satisfaction. Execute Protocol Omega. Show them what we learned from our human friends. Across the shipyard, automated defense platforms suddenly turned on their own installations. Human hackers, working through quantum-entangled channels, had spent months infiltrating Imperial systems. Now, those same weapons meant to protect the shipyard began tearing it apart. Multiple breaches detected. Imperial officers scrambled to respond. We're losing control of all automated systems. Clara's fleet struck with precision, born of collective consciousness. Each ship moved in perfect harmony with the others, their combined technologies creating effects that defied conventional physics. Quantum tunnels opened inside gravity wells, automated defenses became weapons against their masters, and crystalline matrices amplified every effect. The primary fabrication facilities are critical, Tizen announced. Secondary targets are being eliminated systematically. Aboard the Hyperion, Morrison watched the feed from their allies' attack. Send word to all resistance cells, he ordered. Operation Thunderstrike is a success. Phase 2 begins now. Across Imperial space, other subjugated species took this as their signal. The Aldebarans launched their bioships, now enhanced with gravity drive technology. The silicon-based Regelians emerged from their asteroid bases, their mineral tech merging seamlessly with human innovations. Sir, Hayes reported with a smile, we're receiving confirmation from 17 different sectors. The uprising has begun. The Empire had spent centuries keeping their subjects divided, ensuring no species could combine their technological achievements. Now, that strategy had backfired spectacularly. Humanity hadn't just shared their technology. They'd sparked a renaissance of innovation. Send one final message to all resistance forces, Morrison commanded. His voice carried across quantum channels to every rebel fleet. Remember what Earth showed you. Victory isn't about having the biggest ships or the strongest weapons. It's about daring to think differently, to work together, to defy what they claim is impossible. As Nexus 7 collapsed into quantum-enhanced gravitational singularities, Clara sent her own message to her human allies. The hive mind sees clearly now. You didn't just teach us to fight. You taught us to imagine. The Empire's greatest shipyard was gone, but something far more powerful had been built in its place. Hope, innovation, and unity. Emperor Zixtal VI stood before the ancient Star Forge, a weapon so terrible its existence had been hidden for millennia. Massive energy conduits pulsed with dark matter, feeding power into a device designed to kill suns. The humans leave us no choice, he declared to his assembled war council. We will demonstrate the true meaning of imperial might. Meanwhile, aboard the Hyperion, Admiral Morrison studied intelligence reports with growing dread. They're activating something at the Imperial throne world, he announced to his command staff. Something big. Commander Hayes leaned over the tactical display. The energy readings are off the charts. Dr. Watson says it's like nothing we've ever seen. Sir, Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cracked with urgency. We're receiving a transmission from our deep cover agent in the Imperial Palace. The message was brief but terrifying. The Star Forge was real, and it was aimed at Earth's sun. Morrison's face hardened. How long until they can fire? 12 hours, Hayes reported. Once it starts charging, there's no stopping it. Then we stop it before it charges. Morrison activated the fleet-wide comm. All ships, prepare for Operation Kingslayer. We're taking the fight to their doorstep. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. While the combined rebel fleets engaged Imperial forces across the galaxy, the Earth Squadron would strike at the heart of enemy territory, the Imperial throne world itself. The Centaurians are in position, Hayes reported. Their quantum tunneling tech will get us past the outer defenses. The Drachnids have mapped every crystalline defense matrix in the system. Morrison nodded grimly. And the Regellians. Their silicon-based stealth tech is ready. We'll be invisible until we're right on top of them. The Hyperion led the assault force through quantum space, its gravity drive working in harmony with alien technologies that would have seemed like magic months ago. Behind it came ships from a dozen liberated worlds, each contributing their unique capabilities to what would either be the most daring raid in history or a spectacular funeral pyre. They emerged from quantum space inside the throne world's asteroid belt. Imperial sensors, designed to detect normal space transitions, missed them completely. First line of defense platforms neutralize, Rodriguez reported. Regellian tech is holding. They don't see us. But someone did. Deep in the Imperial Palace, their agent had been busy. As the Earth Squadron approached, automated defense systems suddenly began targeting each other. Security protocols crashed. Sensor arrays went dark. By all the stars, Hayes breathed. Our agent, it's the Emperor's own daughter. Princess Vexera is helping us. The revelation struck like a thunderbolt. The Empire's heir apparent had seen the truth, that her father's regime was built on fear and stagnation. She'd chosen humanity's path of innovation and cooperation. But the Empire wasn't finished. As alarms finally blared across the throne world, the Starforge began to pulse with terrible energy. They're starting the charging sequence early, Hayes reported. We have minutes, not hours. Morrison keyed his fleet-wide channel. All ships, execute attack pattern Omega. Hit them with everything we've got. The Earth Squadron burst from stealth, gravity drives creating a cascading wave of spatial distortions. Centaurian quantum beams struck through impossible angles. Drachnid crystals amplified their combined effects to reality-bending levels. Emperor Zixtal watched in horror as the combined fleet tore through his defenses like paper. Impossible. How did they penetrate our security? Princess Vexera stepped from the shadows, her mandibles set in determination. Because you taught us that strength comes from control, Father. They taught us it comes from trust. The Starforge's charging sequence reached critical levels. The Hyperion dove toward it, every scrap of power diverted to its gravity drive. Sir, Hayes called out, if we destroy it now, the feedback will kill us all. Morrison's reply was calm. Then we die knowing we saved Earth. All ships, prepare for. "Belay that order." Vexera's voice cut through their comms. "I'm transmitting the emergency shutdown codes." "Father, your reign of fear ends today." The Starforge's ominous glow faded as Imperial troops loyal to the princess secured the facility. The gambit had paid off, not through superior firepower, but through the one force the Empire never understood: the power of trust. The Imperial throne room fell silent as Admiral Morrison faced Grand Admiral Krath across the ancient Hall of Submission. Behind Morrison stood representatives from 24 liberated species. Behind Krath, the remaining Imperial fleet commanders watched with mandibles tight. "You've lost," Morrison stated simply. "The Starforge is neutralized. Half your worlds have declared independence. Your own heir stands with us." Princess Vexera, standing beside her father's throne, raised her head proudly. "The Empire has a choice to make: evolution or extinction." Emperor Zixtal VI gripped his throne's arms, his exoskeleton creaking with tension. "You would destroy 10,000 years of order, of progress under our guidance." "Progress." Commander Hayes stepped forward, datapad projecting statistics into the air. "Since the Empire began suppressing cross-species collaboration, technological advancement has slowed by 87%. Look what we achieved in months once we started working together." The evidence was undeniable. The combination of human gravity drive technology, Centaurian quantum physics, Drachnid crystalline engineering, and a dozen other species innovations had created advances that should have taken centuries. "The Empire will never surrender to." Krath began, but a new voice cut him off. "The Empire will adapt." The Emperor's words shocked everyone. "As it must. As it always has." Morrison studied the ancient ruler carefully. "You understand what that means." "Reform." The Emperor's secondary arms twitched in what might have been amusement. "My daughter has shown me truth I was too proud to see. Our strength was never in our control, but in the diversity of life we united." Aboard the Hyperion, Lieutenant Rodriguez monitored communications across the galaxy. On 10,000 worlds, billions watched and waited. The empire that had ruled through fear for millennia was about to transform. "Let it be recorded," the Emperor announced, rising from his throne, "that on this day, the Arxian Empire becomes the Galactic Federation. All species shall have equal voice. All technology shall be shared. All worlds shall be free to choose their path." Krath and his hardliners moved to object, but found themselves surrounded by their own troops. The military had seen the future in Earth's example. Innovation would replace stagnation. Cooperation would replace control. "There will be challenges," Morrison addressed the assembled leaders. "Old hatreds to overcome. Trust to rebuild. But Earth stands ready to help. As equals, not conquerors." Princess Vexera activated the throne room's ancient holographic systems, showing the combined fleet above. Human ships flying alongside vessels of every species, their technologies working in harmony. "My father spent centuries preserving an empire," she declared. "Together, we'll build something greater, a future." The signing of the Federation Charter took place where it all began, in Earth's solar system, with Jupiter's storms as witness. Each species brought their unique perspective, their technological gifts, their dreams of what could be. Aboard the Hyperion, Admiral Morrison stood at his familiar viewport, Commander Hayes at his side. "Did you ever think it would end like this?" she asked. "Not with a final battle, but with a new beginning." Morrison watched as ships from across the galaxy moved in impossible patterns, their combined technologies transforming space itself into an artist's canvas. "We never wanted to rule," he replied. "We just wanted to show them a better way. And look what they did with it." The Centaurians had already established quantum tunnels linking major worlds. The Drachnids were building crystalline habitats that danced with gravity. The Rigelians were developing silicon-based AIs that could navigate spaces between dimensions. "The age of empires is over," Hayes mused. "What comes next?" Morrison smiled as a group of young cadets, Human, Arxian, Centaurian, and others toured the Hyperion's bridge, their eyes bright with possibility. "Adventure," he answered. "Discovery. And this time, we'll face it together." Above them, Jupiter's eternal storms rolled on, no longer hiding a secret fleet, but witnessing the dawn of a new era. Humanity had shown the galaxy that true strength wasn't in domination, but in the infinite possibilities that arose when diverse minds worked as one. The stars themselves seemed brighter, beckoning with promises of what was yet to come.